One of the things that I have noticed about thinkers is that they get caught up in the form of thought. They're not getting caught up in the substance of logic, but they're actually getting caught up in the form, mistaking the form for content. And because of this, I see these philosophers entering into confusion over and over again. It's like one thinker who I presented a series of arguments refuting the metaphysical takes of philosophy. And instead of engaging with these arguments, this thinker simply looked around on the basis of motivated reasoning for essays that reinforced his premises on metaphysics. So he didn't think about the arguments against metaphysics. What he did is he looked for information that would affirm his bias, that would reinforce his belief on the supremacy and the superiority of metaphysics. And once he saw premises within these essays that validated his beliefs, he just automatically assumed that these premises and these essays were justification and a validation of his own position on metaphysics. This is a fallacious way to reason. It's not even a way of reasoning at all. It's an exercise in bias. And what I have seen over and over again with the philosophers is that they are repeatedly engaged in form over content, mistaking the form for content. And they don't realize that they deceive themselves by their form, because they have an analytical form which leads them away from a sharper logic. Instead of dealing with premises head on, instead of refuting positions directly, the formal parsing, the framing, the phrasing, it leads to a kind of evasion and a multiplication of unnecessary complexity. When we approach thought, we ask ourselves the question, when does what we are doing and thinking mean something? When does thought have power? When is thought relevant? What gives our thinking power? What gives our premises power? I only know of two answers to this that are valid, and that would be evidence and that would be reason. When we state a premise that is rationally defensible, it is rationally powerful, and it is rationally significant. It doesn't matter if philosophers want to kick against it with a narrative. And make no mistake, this is what most philosophers do. They push back against logic with narrative. And when a logician refutes their narrative with logic, they characterize the logic. They don't engage it. And the logician refutes the narrative against logic. We have in society a distinction between philosophy done through narrative and philosophy done through reason. Most of the philosophers that I have met and engaged with in my time are unconsciously engaged in a project of narrative declaration or narrative assertion, because they don't have the capacity of reason are because reason does not lead them to the conclusions that they desire. When are we doing something significant in philosophy? Are we doing something significant when we assert premises that we believe in? Are we doing something significant when we establish premises that are defensible, both rationally and evidential? This was supposed to be the ground and the foundation of philosophy, but philosophy has drifted away from this substance and gotten caught up in form. And I see this form everywhere. I see it even in the domain of naturalism, where philosophers, I think, should know better, but they still end up falling prey to the form. I think the important thing for us as rationalists, as critical thinkers, is not to be intimidated by narrative philosophers, because that's largely what narrative philosophers seek to do, is intimidate, is to declare the nature of reality through authoritarian assertions of metaphysics. Authoritarian metaphysics. That's what evidence is up against. That's what rationality is up against. And we should not be intimidated by thinkers who proceed along these lines. They are the ones who are at fault. They are the ones who cannot defend their worldview. They are the ones who are trying to smuggle in premises. They are the ones who are not doing anything that's significant. Our duty is to look at the substance, is to consider the rationality, the argumentation, the step-by-step logical process, to see if it's valid, to see if it's legitimate, to see if it's authoritative and defensible. Our duty is to understand evidence and to make use of that evidence to refute error. But I see the philosophers are all too much engaged in an act of form without rational substance. And it's important for us to recognize this. And it's important for us not to be pulled down a path, a popularity path, of believing that our position that is defensible, rationally defensible, and evidentially defensible, is somehow inferior because it is being bullied by a philosophical narrative. This is not how thinking works. It's not how logic proceeds. It's not how critical thinking functions. But it's how a great deal of thought in the world functions. What we have need of is confidence. What we have need of is rational competence. This is woefully lacking in the world. And when we have confidence, and when we have competence, then it is our duty to engage and to utilize these things within the context of discourse, to refute error and defend what is true.